Good morning, web designers. Today we're going to start another exciting chapter, tutorial 6, talking about tables and CSS layouts. The tables are being used not just to present information in an ordinary way. It's also could be used to lay out your page. Let me show you an example. Probably that would be a good idea. If you go to Highline, if you are on Highline and you go to your this particular page. This page could be divided by either CSS or table. The table and CSS can give you the same kind of look or layout. This page could be done in a CSS layout or in tables. Can you see this? The edges of this page is limited to I think 850 pixels, maybe 900 pixels, and maybe if it is a table, then you have merged cells here, but you have column 1, column 2, column 3 all the way down. And I can put another table within a table to present the other data. But mainly here is to help me to lay out my page. Again, that also could be done in CSS layout, and you're going to see something very much the same kind of layout that would present this. Probably I showed you this one before. I'm going to share with you another website that I'm working on right now that I use table for layout. But and this is actually a table here that I found out it's a little bit easier to do this. You'll find out later that sometimes CSS does not present, does not allow the background that appears nicely. So sometimes I choose table instead of CSS, but other time I use CSS. And many times actually I use CSS. Like for instance, my own website is CSS. This is done by CSS. So it depends how you want it to do it. You can do it with a CSS layout just to get this kind of look, or this layout to get this kind of look. They look the same. The difference between the table layout and the CSS layout is the CSS layout is much faster to load than a table, and you can actually do more options with it, especially blending options in the back. All right, so let's move on. Eventually, we're gonna create a table that looks too similar to Winter Special right here. You can see we have background color, foreground color, border color, merging cells, and even formatting the outside border color as well. So let's see how we can actually duplicate this table right here. You'll be seeing me stopping just to save time to add the table. So some of the contents I'm gonna type, I'm gonna stop the recording. So please open info.html file, save it as info new.html. Okay, I'll go ahead. If you're interested, you can change the title to Flu Bus Line. Click Save. And ideally, when you create a table, like for instance, the tables I showed you earlier, is to eliminate your presence on the page. For instance, I don't want the table to extend, because if you leave it by default, they are different on the programs. The first default goes automatically by 100% the width of the page. The second default is only it's as wide as is the content. It's fit the content only. But as you will notice, we'll have the opportunity to actually have add attributes to the table to determine exactly the width of it, how it's aligned, and if we can further go more with the CSS layout, CSS content or CSS coding to let the table to be float, which allowing the text to float, to wrap around it like we did with images. I don't think we're gonna do that, but if you're interested, please look into it. we didn't do this in the HTML, but so I'm gonna scroll all the way down. And at the end of the special flu line enter special, hit enter. There are multiple ways of inserting table. The quick way to insert table is to go this way right here and select your rows and columns, but this is not going to give me the table property dialog box. So if you're doing it for the first time, it's best way to do it. Go to table, insert table. Here we can do much more at the very beginning than it, when you go quick tool table, insert table. So what I want to do now, I want to insert a table that has columns and 6 rows, 6 columns. Then alignment and layout, I'm going to make this one, it can be left or right. This way allowed to flow to the left, flow to the right, but the text does not necessarily go around it. But I want to make this particular alignment, table alignment center. If you do not do this the first time, you're not going to be able to do it the second time. That is one bad coding from Expression Web. This only can work from the first time you're setting up your table. So if you insert a table without centering it, then you have to use Css Layout to center it. Otherwise, if you're doing it from the very first time, if you really want to center the table, they can center it here. Here you can allow the table to float left or right using CSS. Then here is determine how the table width is going to be. Now, if it's 100% or 80% or 90%, this table is going to stretch or shrink, depends on your window size. If we leave it in pixel, and that's advise you what to do, this will keep the table exactly that width, but the book wants you to do 90%. So that means the table is going to either stretch or shrink, depends on the window size. Cell padding and cell spacing. Cell padding is the margin between the content of inside the cell and the border, and the cell spacing is actually the spacing between each cells. Specify height doesn't always work, so I would not use it. Table directions by default is left to right, but you can actually change it right to left if you use in other languages. And the border by default is 0. And in old ways, the default used to be 2 pixels, but now it's changing. So now I'm going to add border 6. Okay, for the color border, I'm going to add olive. So click on the list right here and select olive. Collapse your table border. The reason we collapse the table border, because otherwise the border looks like a double line. When checking this box, the border will look as a single line. And the background color, I'm going to type # FFF, 4 Fs, and 2 Cs. This is a little bit light yellow color. I can add pictures in there, but I would rather use CSS to have better ways of aligning the picture. Please do not check this box, because every time you insert the table, it's going to look exactly the same way. And later on, we can show you how to actually use auto format. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to save. I'm going to view it in the browser to see what we have so far. And what we have is this. There's nothing in there, but at least we know there are the tables. So the percentage, you can see if I shrink the table, I shrink the Explorer window, and the table will shrink along with it. So that's what I really don't like. So if we keep that table fixed, I'll show you. If you want to go back to the table, I'm going to style and double click on it and change the width from percent to pixel. And I type maybe 600. I will change that again. Click OK. Save it. Go back to my browser to check what we've done. Refresh. So you can see, despite the fact you're shrinking your window or not, the table is going to be exactly the same width. And this is the way I'll ask you to do. There are a lot of benefits of using the percentage, but not all the time. Again, I'm gonna double click to go into the property of the table and change it to not 600%. That would be way too wide. And a lot of people do make that mistake. They make the table 600%, 200%, and the table really look funny then. So click OK to accept. Control S to save. I hope you can see the dotted lines to separate the cells. And we're gonna do later on is add the borders for those interior cells and then add content in each cell. So what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna start adding content in the table. So go to your first cell, first row, and type winter. It's on page 270 if you are interested. Figure 6.66. That's what I'm gonna be following. It's special. As you notice, and don't let that scare you, the content with the cell actually expands because it's to accommodate that you actually telling you there are actually information in that cell. But as soon as we start typing in other cells, it will readjust. But we're gonna fix the width of each cell, so we not actually do that for us. The second row, first cell, I'm gonna type from. You can do the right arrow or the tab key to jump from one cell to another. Don't hit enter. Click, then type 2, tab, leave, tab, arrive, tab, percent off, price, tab, then trip number. Control S to save. Then below from, I'm gonna type New York. So I'm gonna stop now because I'm gonna type the exact information I have right now. Then I come back to talk to you after that data is entered. So here we go. We completed this entering the text to the table. Now we're gonna modify the table layout. On page 271, talking about inserting rows or inserting table. To insert a row, I just can be in this any particular word the area I need to be in. Like on page 272, we're gonna add Boston special from to right between New York and Washington, and also another one at the end of the table. So I can be in here. I can select the row this way, or I can select the column this way, or I can select the cells that way. Now I'm selecting the cells here. I'm not selecting the table. So to select the table, I can click on this tab right here or this tab right here. But here I'm only selecting the cells. I can select one cell this way, or I can select one cell that way. I can select the table row this way, but there is no columns. So best way to select the column is this one right here. I can also select multiple columns if you're interested, or select multiple rows if you are interested as well. I want to insert a row in here right below between New York and Washington. I can to do this, I can go to table, insert row below. Now if you're in Washington, you go row above. Please play with that until you get it right. And I'm going to insert another row at the very end. And the fastest way to add a row at the very end of the table is go to the last cell of the table and hit the tab. And you quickly do add a row to the last of that table. This is the only way it works if you add in a row to the end of the table, and does work with Microsoft Word as well. So here I'm going to type Boston, New York. So I'm going to copy this, paste, add cheat. Then the time is going to be 7 a.m. Arrive is 12:15 p.m. and the code is going to be B33. Again, to here from Cleveland to Philadelphia. Copy and paste. 5:45 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. Trip number is C88. Control S to save. I'm going to go ahead now add borders to the cells. Again, do not select the table because you'll not be able to work with the cells. I'm going to select all the cells by left click on the first cell and drag all the way to the bottom cell. Then you can right click here and go cell properties, and we'll come up to this particular window. There's more options you can do in this if you are interested, but our purpose, we want to make the border 3 and the color navy blue. And if you have expression web 3, this does not work all the time, but expression 4 they improved on it. Control S to save, switch to the browser, see what we have so far. The book also asking about inserting a column. Similarly, what we did with the row, I can be in any cell. I don't have to select the column. Then when I go table insert, I want to be sure I want to insert column to the left or column to the right. Do not insert cells, please. The table would look really funny if you do that. So if I click column to the left and you select it, that's fine. If you don't want it, click on it. Go table, delete columns. Okay, Control S to save. The book said to undo, but I would like to show you how to delete columns and rows. You can also delete cells, but then you have what we call a pimple cell in there, which is nothing in it. You cannot do anything with it. There's another feature that Expression has that's kind of nice. If that Dreamweaver does not, is I want to have all these cells the same content as this one right here. So I'm going to highlight these cells and go to table, fill down. Now if you do it right, it does show to the right as well. Save. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute the column evenly, which is something really also Expression Web has advantage on Dreamweaver. So I'm going to highlight my column, go to table, modify, distribute the column evenly, Control S to save, Control S to save. Now we're going to start formatting the table a little bit better. So go to where it says percent of price. At the beginning of the letter P, hit Shift Enter. Go to the trip number. At the beginning of the letter N, Shift Enter. Control S to save. If this columns need to be bigger than the rest of the columns, you can actually resize it manually. You can resize it manually by replacing the pointer over any column you want border, left click and drag. And he's telling me I can resize it to 139 pixel. Again, this is not a good way of doing it. It's actually going to the table cells and set that way much better. Just let me give you a hint. To set the column width, you only have to set the first cell. When the first cell width is set up, automatically the below cells will follow the first cell. So if you want to do this manually, only set up your first cell, not necessarily each cell. I hope that makes sense to you. We're on page 279 now. So I'm going to go ahead, highlight or select those two cells. I'm going to delete the content because we don't know what's going on. So I'm going to right click now, then go modify, merge cells. Then in here I'm going to type TBD. As you notice, by default, the cell alignment is middle. Control S to save. Select the table. Change the default font to Arial. Control S to save. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the first row right here, right click on it, modify, merge cell. Then I'm gonna center it. I'm going to select the next row, then center the next row, then select all the content in here, select all and center it, and leave that content right there like it is. Control S to save. I'm going to highlight winter special, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger and add more format to it. Go to format font, bold italic. Want to do color navy and the size extra large, and make all caps and click OK. Gonna highlight the second row right here, go large size. The color is gonna be maroon. Click apply. I'm gonna make it bold. Again, to do all caps, I'm gonna have to go format, font, all caps. Control S to save. Let's view this in the browser what we have. You can see now we have more as a table. The last thing we're gonna do is actually change this to make it look the what the book wants us to do. So we're gonna add a background color and a foreground color. So we're gonna go back to the expression web. The second row selected. Go to format, borders and shadings. Click on the shading tab. The background color is gonna be teal, and the foreground color is gonna be white. Then click OK. Control S to save. Let's go back to the browser, refresh, and now this one looks like that one. So are we all done?